Hello everyone, welcome back. Now we will see what is direct query, understand how this will work and how this will differs to import mode. So direct query is again, as I told, it will not support for all the sources. It will support only for very few sources in Power BI. It is mainly for live reporting. So it is exactly against opposite to import mode. So in import mode, what happens if you try to load data to Power BI, it will load everything and store in a Power BI desktop. It means it just copy everything. Direct query mode will not load data. It will just establish connection from Power BI desktop to your sources. That is what I have written here. Direct query doesn't pull data from sources. Instead, it will establish connection between Power BI and data sources. It means the connection will establish. Data will just reside in the source itself. And if you try to drag and drop something from the right hand side to the visuals, at that moment, if you drag and drop, this will send the queries in the backend in the form of SQL to the databases to show the data in the reporting. So we'll see in action what exactly is that. And this is mainly for live reporting. So batch reporting, we use import mode. Let's say, for example, the same. If you want delay in the reporting, we use import mode. For live, why means it's near real-time reporting. For example, whatever the business is currently happening in your organization, if you want to see the same real-time, near real-time, we can call real-time reporting, we use direct query mode. Again, the main usage for this is live reporting. And if you go with Power BI Premium, then both are same, because Power BI Premium has even larger capabilities where we can have more than 1 GB of file size to push to Power BI service. But if you don't have Power BI Premium, and if you have just Power BI Pro, and if you're using import mode, we have restriction of 1 GB, because that is why if you keep loading data to Power BI, that the file size gets increased. But in the direct query mode, this is completely will not happen, because direct query mode will not load data to Power BI. It will just establish connection to Power BI. That is why if you have a large data sets, this will be your sources. Again, if you are going only for live reporting only, this will be useful. For batch reporting, again, it will go for import mode. And like how we have advantages for direct query, similarly we have some disadvantages. For example, if a report will be slow, that is the main thing, because in the import mode, because you load data everything into Power BI itself, that is why if you drag and drop something into your visuals, it will be very fast. But if your visuals are very slow in sometimes, then we should understand that okay, there is some issue with the load of the mode of loading, either it can be import mode, direct query mode. That is the first question we should ask. So if you try to drag and drop something from right hand side to the visuals, what happens? As I told earlier, direct query mode, it will send the queries at that point of time and establish connection in the backend and show the data. That's why it will just happen internally, but it will not pull data. That is why during that process of connecting to the sources and showing the data in your visuals, that will be a bit slow. And also if you have complex queries in your reporting, the backend queries are very complex, it will time out. So complex queries means if you directly load a table, like the first example I've shown, if we just go with the tables directly, it will be same. If you write some queries in the advanced editor, in that case, if you have any complex queries, sometimes it will time out. It will not even establish connection. That is why we should make sure if you are going with direct query modes, the query we should be as simple as possible. Similarly, whatever the Power Query editor we have and DAX expressions will not support for direct query. It means it will support, but up to only limited queries. Limited DAX functions only support direct query. Similarly, Power Query editor options, whatever we have in Power BI desktop, that all the Power Query options will not support for direct query. These are the limitations of direct query. Either DAX expressions also will not completely support. Power Query options also will not completely support. This also we should keep in mind while going for this. And also, as I told, it will support only for few data sources. And we have something called CTs, we call common table expressions in SQL, that are not supported in direct query. So if I show you like what sources that support direct query and what sources that doesn't support direct query. So even if I just Google direct query support, direct query sources, we have something called this list of sources. So these are the sources. Data sources means these are the sources that Power BI supports by default. and you can see direct query, yes or no. So wherever there is no, it means majority of the sources you see no only. It means wherever there is no, Power BI will not, I mean, direct query will not support for those sources. As I told earlier, direct query sources also keeps increasing as per the regular updates. Maybe in future, if you're using any source that direct query doesn't support, at least at this point of now, maybe you may get update in future that it will also support. Same thing that happens, I remember, for PostgreSQL, direct query source was not supported earlier. I think now PostgreSQL also support direct query. We can see by default all the SQL Server sources. It can be SQL Server or SQL Server related sources, and major databases like Oracle, MySQL, everything will support both direct query and import mode. So this is the major difference between import mode and direct query mode. But there are some other differences as well when we talk about the direct query mode and especially direct query mode, because this is something we use largely when we go for live reporting. So the main benefit, as we discussed, it enables large volume of data. So if you have huge amount of data, because since we don't have a restriction of 1 GB limitation for our Power BI file, so for large data sources, we go direct query, which is very helpful. Similarly, for near real-time reports, which is live reports, we go, and also data refresh is not required. This is very, very important. So why? Because if you go with import mode, so what happens? Let's say I have 100 records as of now. Now I'll load data to Power BI desktop and I do reporting on top of 100 records and I show the metrics to business and I'll publish. I mean, after publishing Power BI service, I have everything. So now the data is completely based on only those 100 records. Now let's say if 100 becomes 200 in the backend, Power BI doesn't know whether the report has been updated. I mean, whether data has been updated or not. In that case, what we need to do is we have to refresh the database. We have to refresh the data sources. So refreshing will be required only in import mode when we go for import mode. Refreshes will not be required when you go for direct query mode. That is very important because direct query, we don't load data. It just establish a live connection there. I mean, lively we can connect to data sources and we can see the report. That is why data refresh will not be required for direct query sources. Similarly, if we have one direct query source, we cannot integrate with other direct query source. So let me take a new Power BI file. Let me close this. So now we are going to take data from using direct query mode. So since direct query is establishing connection live to the databases, that is why it will not allow other sources to connect. I mean other direct, because we have only one direct query connection from one single sources, but not multiple sources. And also the same thing, Power Creator and DAX will not have complete support for direct query mode. And also one more thing, there is something called Q&A we discussed, right? So Q&A also will not be enabled for direct query mode. So we will see that in action now. So let me just maximize this. So get data, the SQL Server. Now I'll take from direct query. So the same server dot and click on OK. So now the interface will remain same, but observe carefully in the left hand side. Now we have three tabs here: report tab, data tab, and data model tab. So now I'll just take a few tables, just three tables. Click on load. Now if you observe carefully, it will see, if you can see here, it will just evaluate and it will just connect, it will establish connection, it will not load data. So now what happens is in the backend, it is establishing connection from my Power BI desktop to the underlying data source, which is SQL Server at this point of time. So even if you use Oracle or any other source as well, it will be the same process. Just click on the mode direct query, and whether you can write queries or you can just select the tables, it's up to you. That is how you can see creating connection in the model. That is what the difference. Now see, at the moment it was connection was created, you see the second tab was almost gone. It means direct query reports will not load data. That is why we cannot see data here. We can just do reporting. We can just see the modeling. That's all. There is a major difference. the data tab cannot be visible in direct query mode. Now if you try to take some other source, now currently I have only one SQL Server source, but in general, if you try to integrate, like integrate means like how in import mode we can integrate data from Excel, SQL Server, other sources without any issues. But in direct query mode, if you try to integrate something using some other source using direct query, that will not support. That is what we generally call direct query will not support integration of data sources. And also we have one more limitation for direct query, that Q&A we have whatever. Let's say if you go to modeling, you can see Q&A will not be there, because Q&A will be based on the data what available in the Power BI desktop. Because since we are not loading data to Power BI desktop, Q&A will be disabled. Similarly, this is Q&A setup, right? If you go to this Q&A as well, it will be disabled because this will not support for direct query mode. And as I told, for example, if I try to take some visual here, and if I try to load something, now for example, if I try to drag something and put here, what happens is you can see there is some small loading that also happens based on multiple factors. But in general, if you try to drag and drop something in import mode, it will be very fast. It will show very quickly. Direct query mode has to establish connection in the backend. Of course, that will be very fast in the backend as well. But comparatively, direct query mode is a bit slow. And also this will also negatively impact the performance of sometimes data sources. So for example, since we are completely relying on data sources in the backend, so based on database configuration, like for example the server connectivity, the RAM, the memory we have used for database as well will also impact in reporting as well. That is why this will also create, if you try to keep loading data from direct query, this also creates some negative impact in the actual data source as well. So this is the main difference between import mode and direct query mode. But even if you see, if you go to Power Creator, transform data, so here we have some limitations for direct query mode, same in DAX as well. So that we will discuss in DAX which expressions that will not work in direct query, because import will work everything. That's why we don't need to bother about import mode. So let me recap the differences between import mode and direct query mode. Import mode is for batch reporting, and direct query is for live reporting. Import mode is fast, direct query is slow. And also, if you are going with a large data sets, because we have limitation of 1 GB file size to publish to Power BI service, import will not be a good option for you. So if you are working for large data sets, and if you don't have Power BI Premium, then we can use direct query without any issues. Of course, this latency will be there. That is a known issue. And also the DAX and Power Creator options, everything will support without any issues in import mode. DAX and Power Creator options will have some limitations in direct query mode. And also we can also integrate multiple sources in import mode, but in direct query mode we can't integrate multiple sources. I mean, multiple direct query sources cannot be integrated. But in the recent updates in the last year, maybe in 2018, I'm not sure when it came, there is something called mixed mode. Now for example, if you see, I don't know how many have observed, so if you load data using import mode, we cannot see anything here. If you see in the right hand side bottom where I'm hovering my mouse, we can see storage mode direct query. It means it is clearly showing it is direct query mode. But for import mode, we cannot see like this indication because it will load everything. And if you don't see something called data tab here, that is also it means that it is direct query mode. And if you click to change, so what happens is it will be asking switch all the tables to import mode. So if you read this properly, setting storage mode to import is irreversible operation. You will not be able to switch back to direct query. It means if you switch direct query mode to import mode, it means what happens is it will load everything. Now for example, if I click on switch all tables to import, now this direct query report will be turned to import mode, because now it is going to load data to our Power BI desktop. Now after some time we will see this data tab here. So now it is no more direct query mode, it is import mode, because now we have data. and here we can see there is no this indication of direct query. So similarly, recently what we have is there is something called mixed mode. Mixed mode means it is a combination of direct query mode and uh, import mode. So we'll see what is that and how it differs from import to direct query, and what is the advantages we get when we go for mixed mode. That we will see in the next session. So please practice, guys. These are the main concepts of Power BI. So without import direct query, we cannot go forward in Power BI desktop, because this is the major thing we do when we start reporting. So that's all I have, guys. We'll continue in the next sessions.